He was a man caught between his beliefs and his president. As Abraham Lincoln's Attorney General, Edward Bates helped define executive power during the Civil War. He shaped key decisions on civil rights and military authority, and he played a role in the legal battles over emancipation. But his legacy remains overshadowed by the towering figures of his time. Was Bates a defender of justice, or was he too cautious in one of the most pivotal moments in American history? Today, on the JQA treatment, we examine Edward Bates, his life before office, his time as Attorney General during the Civil War, and his legacy in shaping legal precedents that still impact America today. Before Edward Bates became one of the highest-ranking legal minds in Lincoln's administration, he was a Missouri-born lawyer and politician who spent his career walking the line between Unionist ideals and Southern identity. He was born in 1793 in Virginia. Bates moved to Missouri Territory, where he became a leading lawyer and gained a reputation as a constitutional scholar. He quickly entered politics, serving in Missouri's state legislature, and later as a U.S. congressman from 1827 to 1829. And he was a Whig, aligned with figures like my boy Henry Clay, advocating for federal infrastructure projects and economic modernization. However, like most people at the time, he was tasked with understanding what the slavery question would be. Like many border state politicians, Bates initially defended slavery, but later moved toward gradual emancipation, a position that would shape his future. By the 1850s, he aligned with moderate Republicans, opposing the spread of slavery, but not advocating for immediate abolition. This is the thing that people don't really understand, is that a lot of the Northerners, they didn't like slavery, but that didn't mean that they felt that blacks were equal to whites. Same with the President of the United States at the time. Abraham Lincoln abhorred slavery, yet didn't know what to do when there was no slavery anymore. So Bates ran actually for the president in 1860, competing for the Republican nomination against, of course, Abraham Lincoln, William Seward, and Salmon P. Chase. He represented conservative, pro-union Republicans, but ultimately lost, obviously, to Lincoln, who later offered him the role of Attorney General, so he got something out of it. One of the things that Bates had said on national unity was that the Union must remain indivisible, for its dissolution would be the undoing of our nation's principles. So as Lincoln's Attorney General, Edward Bates was tasked with helping navigate the legal challenges of the Civil War, including the limits of presidential power, civil liberties, and the path toward ending slavery. Now, he endorsed Lincoln's suspension of habeas corpus, allowing for the detention of suspected Confederate sympathizers without trial. This is huge because a lot of the times people think that because Lincoln led us through the Civil War that he was untouchable. However, suspending the writ of habeas corpus is directly against the Constitution, and it begs the question, what happens during times of war, times of crises? Can the president suspend our rights? Now, Bates also defended military tribunals for civilians suspected of disloyalty, a move that was later criticized as an overreach of executive power. Now, here comes the biggest thing, the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, Bates supported limiting slavery, but he was skeptical, of course, of the constitutionality of the Emancipation Proclamation. He argued for gradual emancipation rather than the executive order declaring that all enslaved people in Confederate states were free. While he did not oppose Lincoln directly, because that would be dumb, he was overshadowed by more radical voices like Salmon P. Chase and William Seward. In 1862, Bates issued a legal opinion declaring that all free black men born in the U.S. were citizens, directly contradicting the infamous Dred Scott decision. Now, this legal opinion helped lay the foundation for the 14th Amendment, which would later establish birthright citizenship. Bates was later quoted as saying about the constitutional law that the Constitution must be interpreted not through politics, but through principle and justice. Now, despite playing a major role in shaping the legal strategy of the Union, Bates grew frustrated with Lincoln's leadership and the increasing power of radical Republicans, because remember, he's a moderate. By late 1864, he resigned from office, leaving behind his political allies and his role in shaping the war's legal course. Part of the things of why he broke with the radical Republicans was that he opposed giving full political rights to newly freed black citizens, a stance that put him at odds with the growing push for racial equality. He also disagreed with Lincoln's decision to replace him with James Speed, a more abolitionist-leaning attorney general. So this is the problem that's happening within the Civil War, is you're getting these notions of we should free black citizens, but then you're also getting these ideas of how to exactly implement that, especially when you're also looking forward to trying to reconcile the South with the North. Now, after resigning in 1864, Bates returned to Missouri, where he focused basically on writing and legal work. He continued to oppose radical Reconstruction policies, arguing that they gave too much power to the federal government over the South. He eventually died in 1869, leaving behind a complicated legacy. A legal mind who helped preserve the Union, but failed to fully embrace the civil rights movement that followed. He also said in retirement, "History will judge not by war alone, but by what follows after its guns have fallen silent." So, looking at Edward Bates's legacy, now, it didn't seem like he did much, because I mentioned a lot of the things of just how he shaped the course of the war and how he basically split with his own party, because there was the moderate Republicans and the radical Republicans. So what left is there to say about Edward Bates? Well, he did shape how wartime presidential powers were and how they should be, because these are what guided Lincoln's leadership. So in doing that, he was not going to go against Lincoln during the Civil War. He was going to pretty much back his leader. And that helped shape a lot of what Lincoln did because he was allowed to do it. As his attorney general, he didn't contradict him, at least outright. He also helped lay the foundation for birthright citizenship with his 1862 legal opinion. So in that regard alone, he's setting the stage for the 14th Amendment, which was huge, not just for slavery, but also what people still use today for everyday modern rights. He was also a strong legal mind who played a role in maintaining the Union, basically trying to keep the Union together with his legal opinions. Now, some of his controversial issues are the idea of resisting full emancipation and the idea of resisting black civil rights. It's interesting when you look at the past figures and you see what they intended to do, what they tried to do, and what actually happened. And what actually happened was he was looking at black civil rights and saying, I don't believe in slavery. However, I also don't believe in civil rights for a certain group of people. This is the big contradiction of the people of the 19th century. Now, he also supported controversial wartime measures like suspending habeas corpus, which is obviously not good, but it's also making us understand what happens during times of crises. Because a president has to do things during times of crises where we may not agree with it in the future, but at the time may have been sound. Much like FDR doing his Executive Order 9066. Now, I don't think anybody can defend that. However, I also was not there. I was also not during the time where we were attacked by a certain foreign power. So therefore, I can't really judge him based off of me not being there. And the same thing with Edward Bates. Now, he left office at a time when legal guidance was still needed for Reconstruction, and that's unfortunate. That's the biggest kind of, I don't even know if you would call it a failure, but I think that was the biggest letdown. Because I think with his mindset, I think he could have guided Reconstruction in a way that was constitutional and that was also backed by a majority of Congress, because even though we had radical Republicans in office vying for the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, I still feel that Edward Bates would have been a critical legal figure during that time. Instead, we get the critical legal figure in just the Civil War. His moderation really often left him outpaced by the rapid changes in America. Of course, he defended the Constitution, but did he do enough to shape a truly just post-war nation? And this is where we leave his legacy. It's in the air, and I can feel it coming. in the air tonight. So next time on the JQA treatment, we turn to Robert F. Kennedy, Attorney General, another one, but he was also a senator and a civil rights champion. RFK transformed the Justice Department, took on organized crime, and became a leading voice for racial and economic justice. But was his vision for America cut short before it could be realized? And how did his assassination change the course of U.S. history? So we explore RFK's life and legacy on the next JQA treatment. So subscribe now and leave a review. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning history.